But I will say a trivia question for myself that I never thought that this would be the case. I can tell you quite a coincidence, quite irony, I guess you would say. I was at Monday Night Raw this week, right? I was in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and one thing happened, and it's very strange. I, without any intentions at all of ever doing this, because you couldn't even plan this if you wanted to, because I go to maybe 2, 3, 4 Raws a calendar year, right? I plan them based off of where they are locality wise. That's why I go to them, right? So you couldn't even have planned this if I tried. But I get to say that the Monday Night Raws I have been to, the 2 Raws in which the 24/7 title was birthed and the 24/7 title was retired. In fact, while I was there, it was kind of strange. We were, having conversation in the crowd. Just kind of putting into words before she threw the belt in the garbage, but kind of putting into words like, yeah, you kind of forget, especially with R-Truth not being around, that this belt is still here. And you just, while it was going on, I didn't really take a second to really look back on it. And because when it first came out, it was cool, it was great. But if you were to ask me then, do you see this belt being around in essentially, what was that, 2019, right? So do you see this belt being around in 3 years? Because that was I want to say that was a Monday Night Raw in the month of May. It was the night after Money in the Bank.
Was it Mick Foley?
Mick Foley, yeah. Mick Foley debuted the belt, right? So about 3.5 years-ish, that belt was around. And let me tell you, I was excited for the belt, sure, and it's cool and all when it was debuted. But even I would have said in 3.5 years, I think this thing is gone. I thought the thing would be gone much sooner than that.
I think it would be gone in a year.
So to look back on it and realize that this belt, the 24/7 championship, which is now retired, has been around for 3.5 years, let alone now it's obviously retired. And I can say that I was there at the birth of it and the retirement of it.
You were in between.
I didn't know I was going to the birth of it. And really, I didn't know I was going to the death of it. And, even when Nikki Cross threw it in the belt.
It just kind of happened that way.
I didn't know that was, like when she won the belt, I had no idea that was her intentions, right? I didn't know how great of a champion she would be.
You know what that kind of reminds me of? Not to that.
Alondra Blaze dropping the women's championship in the belt?
Obviously not to that.
That's more that symbolism degree. In the sense of this company's better. I think this is the Nikki Cross character aspect of just being like, I don't even care about this belt.
But it's kind of interesting that you the imagery of women's wrestler putting belt in trash can. Take out the narratives at that point. Just like I was just thinking about that. I'm like, wait a second. That just kind of brings me back a little bit. Like I remember, I was I forget how old I was at that point, but I was young at that point, and I saw her drop that belt in on WCW programming, and now all these years later, I'm seeing another female wrestler doing the same thing. I thought that was kind of cool.
I do think that the WCW one is a little more historic.
Well, yes, obviously, but I'm saying like the imagery of it women's wrestler. Trash can. Women's wrestler, trash can. It's just like an imagery thing. I'm taking the narrative and the storylines out of it. It's just It's just woman dropping belt in the trash.
Yeah,
just that's how I looked at it. I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what happened. And like, what was it? I forget what year, but it was
1996, 1997.
It's been a long time. I was a Sparky back then.
So I will say this much, and I posted out on our Twitter, and I haven't actually checked it pretty recently, but at one time it was about 50-50. So the question is do you think the 24/7 belt should, which WWE has officially, looks like on their websites, made it retired? Do you think it should be retired? I put it in the sense of should they get rid of R-Truth's baby, or good riddance to the 24/7 belt? What do you think, Brandon? Are you happy the 24/7 belt's gone? Are you saying good riddance? Or are you saying no? You know what? Bring this thing back. Let's. I don't know why they're retiring it. Keep the thing going. What do you think about the 24/7 belt?
I'm glad it's gone because it just brought back some really. I don't know. Like, to me, it just, there was so many like odd moments. I thought a lot of it was just like, I mean, they were trying to be funny with a lot of it, and I love R-Truth. Been a big fan. I hope he gets well from the torn quad that he suffered. So we're not gonna see him for a while. I just never cared for that belt. I just thought it was kind of a joke, and like we don't need the belt. We don't need this belt. Like you could have done the weird things that they did. Maybe not all weird things, but you still could have done some weird things because R-Truth, like anytime the word truth comes out recently, he'd come out and I heard my name was called. You could still make it funny because it's R-Truth. Like the 24/7 belt to me, just I never got behind that belt, regardless of Mick Foley putting his stamp on it. To me, it just was kind of like the concept at first was okay, but how they delivered on it all this time in 3.5 years. I'm just glad it's gone. And just to update the poll, I'm pulling it up here on our official Twitter page. 67% of the folks do agree with me that good riddance. Thank God that belt is done. The other 33% says, bring back R-Truth, baby.
I am in that small minority, and here's why. Because I like, because belts, what Vince Russo once always said, are just props, right? And I think, it's a good prop for shenanigans, and I like the shenanigans to stay in that. It's like, let's use the Super Bowl, right? People like the Super Bowl because you got the halftime show, which is music or whatever, skits or commercials, but all those things stay in their place and they don't interrupt the big things. And, back in the day, a good example, if you watch like the Attitude Era, what I love about that is you had some of the most ridiculous stuff going on, some of the most crazy shenanigans in WWE. But what was nice about where they had, Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson fighting or, bra and panties matches is that when you cut that off and you got that music and you saw The Rock pacing back and forth in the back, you could then turn it back to what's the real focus, the seriousness. You're like, all right, okay, everyone's naked over by the pool, but now we move to the main event. Stone Cold, The Rock, and you got back to the seriousness and you didn't have that shenanigans essentially interfere too much in the, the real, what we saw this week at Crown Jewel, the Logan Paul, Roman Reigns, the seriousness, the really good match, the drama of something very important. And so I like the 24/7 belt. It was never treated like a real accrued championship. It was essentially just a cool prop for like when you're at WrestleMania, you have this important championship match, but instead of playing the dumb commercials, which Peacock likes to do, you got some sort of backstage Miz, Gritty from the mascot or, Rob Gronkowski or some other shenanigans to kind of be the entertainment for a quick second. It's when you watch the Super Bowl, you go to commercial, you have some ridiculous commercial, but then you're back to real action. So it's just a good way to do something like
you could have done that without the belt because of R-Truth. Because especially how they were utilizing R-Truth, especially lately, anytime the word truth came out in a promo,
so now how do you see, I guess now when R-Truth comes back, I guess, how do you see him being on your televisions every single week in a segment that you find entertaining without being, in a storyline that's leading towards a pay-per-view match? Because none of these were storylines. What's great is we didn't have to ever have him on TV, building up towards a match.
I just think they'll continue
a segment.
I think it'll just be continuing the whole, he'll hear his name and he'll come out. When he gets healed up from that torn quad, which that's going to be a long term. That's a long term. He'll be out of the game for a bit, but he vows to come back, and I hope he does. He's one of those guys where he can make chicken salad out of shit, so to speak. He's just that funny of an entertainer, and he's one of those guys that he's been around for so long. I remember R-Truth. The first time I ever saw R-Truth in general was when he was K-Quick.
Yes, I think that's when most of us saw him. Him and Road Dogg. Yeah,
and that's how. And that tells you how
getting
long.
Rowdy.
That tells you how long it's been. How long he's been in the business.
I just thought it was just a good way to kind of have it was like the hardcore belt was or anything like that.
Then bring back the hardcore belt.
It's just a good, fun prop that means nothing, but that gets people TV time where we don't have to have them promoting. We can have a segment on Raw that's not about
the belt was useless.
Going towards a match or a feud or something it's just here and now.
To me, it was just nonsense. That's why a lot of people turned away from WWE instead of they want to focus on more of the AEW style wrestling because they're like, okay, I don't want to watch stupid stuff like this. I just want to watch really good wrestling. I like to watch really good wrestestling, but sometimes I like the stupid stuff in between. As long as it doesn't affect the really good. I don't want R-Truth in the main event against Roman Reigns coming out. But promos are normally promos to lead towards feuds, matches in the future. They come out and they talk, every single week on Raw because they're building up towards the next pay-per-view. What was nice about the R-Truth thing, not building up towards anything. Yeah, but a lot of promos, like I've seen AEW do it where they cut a promo, they'll do a promo right before the match starts. Mm-hmm. A lot WWE does it too. They cut a promo and then it leads to a match.
And then a storyline that's essentially summed right up here. I like that. With the R-Truth things, is it started, it ends on Raw. It doesn't start on Raw and end to the pay-per-view. It just starts and ends right now. When you see R-Truth on TV, he's interviewing the mascot of the Philadelphia Flyers or the Philly Fanatic or Pee Wee Herman or whoever. And by the time the segment's over, the storyline's over. It's like telling a story quickly. We're not like WWE with Roman Reigns obviously being champion for as long as he has. You're telling a very long story. But in the terms of R-Truth, every single week you saw him on Raw with the 24/7 belt, it was just a quick story. It was a start, and then maybe it'd be 2 segments. Maybe you'd see him do something silly that'd lead to something maybe a little bit later in the night. But the point is, if you didn't watch Raw, there was no continuation. I mean, on occasion there'd be some talk back about what happened last week on Raw, but for the most part it'd be like all sewn up. He'd be in a Pee Wee Herman to win the 24/7 belt in the middle of the pay-per-view. Pee Wee Herman would lose the 24/7 belt at the end of the pay-per-view, and it would just be like a quick 5-minute segment. Just
see, I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't know that stuff.
Ron Simmons would come out, would say "damn," and it'd all be over with.